You're listening to a 3CR podcast created in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning and welcome to Palestine Remembered. Yes, my voice might be familiar to you if you had just been listening to the previous show. I'm Giselle Hanna and I am just covering Nasser for the first 10 minutes this morning. He is stuck in traffic, desperately trying to get to you. He knows that you're his dear listeners and that you would prefer his voice instead of mine. Nasser will be joining us as soon as he can get in this morning, which means we will delay his introductory talk to you about the roundup of news and happenings in relation to Palestine over the last week. So I will let him do that in the second part of the show. But in a change of format this morning, we're going to go into our feature interview first up. And our guest this morning is Nathalie Farah. She's a Palestinian woman. She's from Disrupt Wars, and she has launched, or her and number of comrades have launched a new campaign in relation to Elbit systems. Welcome, Nat, this morning.
Hello, good morning. It is nice to be on the show.
I'm sorry that Nasser couldn't be doing this interview with you. He absolutely wanted to, and maybe he'll jump in halfway through if he gets here. But
good.
To begin with, tell us about the campaign to stop Elbit Industries. Who is Elbit Industries anyway?
So Elbit Industries is actually an international high technology company, and they are engaged in a wide range of programs throughout the world, but they mostly do defense and homeland security arenas. The company originally is Israeli, and most of their headquarters are currently present in Israel. They say on their website that they are proud of their network of global partnerships. But then in reality, actually for more than a decade, they have had partnerships all over the world that have contributed to multiple genocides, starting from West Papua, so the Indonesian government, and also in Australia with our own defence force. And so there is such a thing called the Elbit Systems of Australia, and it actually is a vital contributor to the genocide that is currently happening in Palestine.
And can you tell us then, while we're speaking about Elbit Industries Australia, what is this $917 million contract that Elbit Industries has been awarded?
So this actually happened in February, which is abhorrent because in February we had already witnessed full months of genocide and war crimes. And still, they were awarded a $917 million contract from the Australian government to work with Hanwha Defence. And that contract will specifically, so the money will be used on Redback infantry fighting vehicles, or RIF vehicles. They are currently being built in Hanwha's Armoured Vehicle Centre of Excellence, which is actually here in Lara, right next to the Avalon Airport. And so basically what is going on is that the Australian government has lined Hanwha's pockets to build these disgusting death machines. Hanwha will also work with the Australian subsidiary of Israeli weapons manufacturer Blazer & Sasa, and they're also equating production for the IOS to carry out genocide in Palestine. And so the fact that they were awarded this contract 4 months into a genocide, it just shows you that Australia, or like our government and our leaders, really have no regard for the human lives of Palestinians. They don't have regard for international law and the fact that International Court of Justice has found war crime in Israel. And instead of boycotting and divesting and sanctioning from so-called Israel, they literally are providing even more weapons to kill even more people in a mass destructive way.
And wasn't there some controversy about 3 years ago where Albert's technology was stripped from Australian Army equipment over possible data security concerns? What can you tell us about this?
Yes, so this was actually in 2021. It was the ABC. And I think they had a whistleblower or they got a hold of something because they revealed in an article that the Army headquarters had issued a directive ordering what's called, and I quote, a cease use of another Albert product that was widely in use and had been in use for about 10 years. The product is called Command and Control, so BMS-C2. Basically, this product, yes, at the time, Elbit Systems strongly denied it, and the security rumors were about the fact that military sources suggested concerns that the technology possibly compromising sensitive data had triggered a directive that it not be configured or accessed on certain Army systems. What that means is that this was a product used by the Australian Army here, so by the Australian Defence Force, to help in controlling Army personnel and soldiers while they are on the field. And so they would be fitted with things like GPS. Then the data would all be sent to satellites and collected. And so there was enough security concerns that the product was seized straight away. All of the USB drives and all of the ways that the data was collected was put under quarantine, and then a Norwegian company was given the contract after the removal of the BMS C2. And so basically, it allowed the commanders to replace maps and analog radios with advanced digital technology and supposedly to better coordinate the units in the field. So the fact that Albert now got this $917 million contract, again, 4 months into a genocide, 3 years after these massive security breaches, it's a bloody stamp and makes so-called Australia much more complicit in the genocide. And then I was reading today about, how the Defence Department is talking about this contract. They're insisting that they work closely with industry partners to ensure that all contractual obligations, including security requirements, are met. But if we actually just look more into it, we'll see that there is something going on behind closed doors that we don't quite understand, because there was a certain way that the Victorian government and the Australian government was treating Albert Systems, and then suddenly everything changed, and now they're being awarded massive contracts.
Well, you've got a petition about all of this, trying to pressure the Victorian Parliament to actually debate this issue. Tell us about your petition.
Yeah, so this is going to the Legislative Council, and it calls on the government to end its partnership with Albert Systems and its memorandum of understanding with Israel's Ministry of Defense. Also, the petition is calling to support an immediate embargo on military trade from Victoria to Israel. A weapons embargo means basically just to halt, to stop. A lot of our so-called leaders, such as Penny Wong a few days ago, continue to insist that Australia is not exporting weapons to so-called Israel. And that is not true. That is a form of gaslighting to the Australian public, because right here in our suburbs, in our neighbourhoods, we continue to manufacture critical and significant parts to weapons that are being exported and then assembled elsewhere. Specifically, right now, we're manufacturing significant parts of the F-35 fighter jet, which is used directly to kill civilians in Gaza. And so this petition draws to the attention of this council that the Victorian Labor government formed the partnership with Elbit Systems, which is Israel's largest weapons manufacturer, and that happened in January 2021. At the same time, they also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Israeli Ministry of Defense in December 2022, and the leaders of the Victorian Labor government in both houses moved resolutions on 17th of October 2023, which was 10 days after Al-Aqsa flood, declaring that it stands with Israel and recognizes its inherent right in defending itself, and that's a quote, without really any reference to international law or restraint on civilian casualties. So this petition is out now. We are collecting signatures by hand in person. That is because if we get 2,000 signatures on paper, then we will be able to force the Labor government to debate this in Parliament. Our next sitting date here in Victoria is on the 29th of April. Today is the 20th. So we are about halfway now through our signatures, which is quite remarkable considering we launched this only on Monday, right? And so we're going to need about 1,000 more signatures. Everything is available on Disrupt War's Instagram. And we're collaborating with a bunch of different groups for this as well. And we're just encouraging people, if you are coming to the Sunday rally, to sign your names on the paper. If you're not, then you can actually download the PDF, print it, and sign it at home and get your friends to sign it, and then return it to Gabrielle DeBeatri's office in Fitzroy. It is only signed by paper, though. I think that is a really important point here. Yeah.
And Nat, beyond the petition, you've got an ongoing campaign. What is it? And if our listeners were interested, how can they get involved?
Yeah, so the campaign is actually quite new, and the first public meeting to this campaign was 2 weeks ago on the Saturday. It is largely following the example that was set by the campaign against Albit's involvement with RMIT a couple of years ago. And that campaign actually did succeed in ending that contract. Following on to that example, this campaign, we're hoping that it's not going to be reactive, so we're going to take time in building strategy and building community around it, and so that people are involved in the way that they would like to, and that people are contributing their skills to this as well. And so we'll continue to have fortnightly public meetings, and there is one actually today at 3 o'clock at Catalyst Social Centre, that is in Coburg. Yeah, we'd absolutely love for people to be involved. Apart from the public meetings, there will be more communication about this online as we go along, mostly through Free Palestine Melbourne, social media, probably Unionists for Palestine as well. It will find its way. At the moment, the petition is the first start of an ongoing campaign that will hopefully see Elbit out of Victoria.
Nat, thank you so much for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That was Nathalie Farah. She is from Disrupt Wars and a new campaign to end Elbit Systems in Australia. You're listening to Palestine Remembered, some community announcements, and then I believe you will have your own rightful host back. So I will give you a moment to get yourself ready, get your ears ready for the dulcet tones of Nasser Mashni.
We've got a common enemy. The same government that locks up these refugees just behind us here at the Park Hotel is the same government that's going for our rights, trying to attack the very limited gains that casuals have. And so when union activists take up the cause of refugees amongst their fellow workers, it's not an act of charity. It's about building workers' united self-defence mechanism, understanding that we're all part of the same battle.
You're listening to Radical Radio on 3CR, 855 on your AM dial, 3CR digital, and podcasting and streaming on 3cr.org.au.
Good morning, listeners, and my apologies for running late. Forgive the voice. My wife and I took a few days and we went to Tasmania. Now, this is a holiday we booked the best part of a year ago, and I felt such guilt that I was going to go. But a dear friend, Clem, said to me, in a choir, people take a breath. And it's the choir that keeps the song going. And each of us needs a moment to take a breath. And so we were able to enjoy 3 and a bit days in gorgeous Tasmania. And I'd commend that to all of you. We did the right thing on getting on the Spirit of Tasmania Check-in opened at 7. We were there at 6:50, first on. And what first on means on the Spirit of Tasmania is last off. So we docked at 7:30, didn't get off the boat till 8:30. So don't do that, and we won't be in the future. Big thank you to Nat for appearing on the show and for Giselle for covering for me. Thank you so much, sis. I want to talk firstly about Iran, and there's a very easy way for supporters of Palestine to just default into Iran's, a helper, without actually examining Iran and its motivations, but also how that fits into the wider narrative. We should be very clear. Israel is irrational. Israel is a genocidal, racist regime acting and flailing in violence as genocidal regimes do when they come towards their end. And we should be very clear. There is no normal now for Israel post-October 7, post the genocide, post the leadership saying things like, turn it into a tent city, human animals, bomb everyone, there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian, etc. There's no turning back. You're never going to be normal again. And if you're a supporter of Zionism, if you're a supporter of Israel, know that we have the receipts. You're never going to be able to say that you weren't. Unlike many white South Africans who were absolutely adamant that they were against apartheid in South Africa. We didn't have the receipts then. We have them now. One of the notions also that extends from that is that Hamas is a proxy of Iran. Now, there's no question Iran is having a regional exertion of power, exerting its own desire for dominance by using situations in different countries and arming separatist groups and militant groups. There's no question that is happening. But to degrade Palestinian resistance, Palestinian fight for self-determination, Palestinian indigeneity and their just right for self-determination to just merely some sort of Shia grand plan for world domination is as absurd as saying that Palestinians fight Israel because they're anti-Semites. They are both as absurd as each other. Let's be very clear. Palestinians would fight and have fought with rocks, with sticks, with stones, with birth, with resistance, with song, with food, with culture, with activism in diaspora. We don't need Iran or anyone else. And we will continue to fight until the last breath of every one of us. And I know, based on the rallies I've been to and the conversations, but also the videos and texts and Twitter posts all over the world, that when we used to say in our thousands and our millions that we were in fact perhaps self-aggrandizing, but there is no question that we're in our millions and perhaps even our billions, as the hypocrisy of Western hegemony has been exposed for all. Now, this genocide could have stopped at any time. And I want to talk first about our Arab brethren, our Arab leadership. When Saudi Arabia was upset with Joe Biden, Joe Biden was coming in to become president, he said some, what arguably is good stuff about MBS and the sort of guy he was following the assassination, dismemberment and murder of a Saudi American citizen in the Turkish embassy, Adnan Khashoggi. He said he's not a good guy. Well, MBS didn't have a problem jacking up prices. MBS didn't have a problem bringing Xi Jinping to Riyadh and rolling out the red carpet until Biden came and kissed the ring. We should be very clear. Turkey, we just heard earlier on in Giselle's show from the Armenians there, aside from, and I didn't know, that they were manufacturing the IOF uniforms and food packets. But aside from that, Turkey has full diplomatic relations. Erdogan won his millionth term of presidency of Turkey last year, campaigning heavily on Palestine, because Palestine is something that's very dear to the Turkish people. And here he is, abandoned it. He could absolutely expel the ambassador. Saudi Arabia could say absolutely there is no chance of normalisation if the genocide doesn't stop today. And they could have said that any day for the past 196 days. They didn't need to wait till today. It's also the case of the United Arab Emirates that had no problem arming Yemenis against the Houthis. No problem at all. Yet they won't arm the Palestinians. They could kick out their Israeli ambassador. Egypt, who since 1977 and Anwar Sadat signing the Camp David peace accords, has been an active participant in the genocide, in the starvation, in the murdering and captivity of Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but every Palestinian. They could have thrown out their ambassador. Sudan, with all the troubles that Sudan's going through, could have stopped their normalisation. Morocco, who in 2000 and 2001, during the Second Intifada, threw out their ambassador, ceased normalisation, could do that today. Today, what the world is saying, what the Arab world in the first instance is saying, is the genocide's okay as long as it's just there. The genocide's okay as long as it's just there. Leave it over there. We're okay with it. It's disgusting. And if you have a look at the world and the conversations now being had in the West, particularly in North America, Joe Biden's worked out, the Democratic Party's worked out, that it's going to cost them the election. They can't believe some brown people getting killed on the other side of the world could cost them the election. This is just absurd. And so they've started with the language of not saying no to the genocide, but humanitarian corridor, humanitarian pause, humanitarian food aid, airdrops. Continue the genocide, but can you do a better PR campaign? You can go into Rafah, but give us a plan for what you're going to do with those refugees in there. He couldn't even stop them. Biden couldn't even stop them from retaliating against Iran. And if you read any Western newspaper or watch any Western news or listen to it, it's like Iran started it. Let's be clear, and again, Giselle said earlier on the 1st of April, Israel attacked an Iranian embassy. International law, the very foundations of it, is predicated on the basis that these embassies are foreign soil and that to have diplomatic relations, irrespective of whether you agree with the country or not, you have to have representatives of that country that you can speak to, that you can't bomb and attack embassies. America is still jumping up and down about an attack that happened 44 years ago when the Islamic overthrow, the Ayatollahs overthrew the Shah in 1980 in Iran. And they took the American embassy and 2 Americans were killed. They're still having conniptions now at that disaster in their eyes. Yet, the entire framage is that Iran attacked Israel. And the worst bit, and I again want to make sure we're very clear, those that support Palestinian rights, those that support Palestinian self-determination, understand that Iran arming Hamas or any other Palestinian resistance groups is not about their proxy war. Palestinians got arms from Fidel Castro. Palestinians got arms from the former Soviet Union. Palestinians got arms from Czechoslovakia, from Tito. Palestinians gave arms to the ANC. Palestinians gave arms to the IRA. The fight for self-determination is interconnected with all those struggles, which is why we get such solidarity from Irish, from the South Africans, from the Cubans, and the entire global South. Now, Iran's attack on Israel, the drones and the missiles, what's missing in Western discourse is not the fact that 99% of the missiles and drones were shot down. There are a couple of things that nobody's actually articulated in the Western media. Number one, aside from it being performative, I mean, if you really want to have a crack, if they really wanted to have a crack, and I'm a proponent for having a crack, and they could have had a crack. But what has been exposed is who helped. Who helped Israel? Jordan helped Israel. King Abdullah, in Arabic we say Al-Kalb Abdullah, the dog Abdullah, jumped to the defense of Israel. This British king, whose actually lineage is back to Saudi Arabia and should actually go back to London and the sycophants that he enjoys kissing the ass of, he jumped to the defense of Israel. The British, the French, and the Americans. What was interesting is not another Arab country did, because Iran made it clear, we're watching who and what. Strategically also, with the voluminous attack, the drones and the missiles, and reportedly 300, whether it's 100 or 50 or 500, Iran was able to see how Israel reacts. Iran was able to see which missile defense system got used, how quickly and where the aeroplanes from the British and the French and the American forces, the Jordanian forces came from. And so they were able to see very, very quickly what was going on. There is, if you were a military strategist, a real, I would have thought, quote-unquote, win for the Iranians. I'm no fan of the Iranians and no fan of their desire for regional hegemony. Let's be very clear. I'm not choosing one tyrant over another. I believe every human being is precious, and everyone has a right to self-determination and to live freely without the dictates of a regime, whether it be founded in Western imperialism or a notion of religious superiority. My friends, very importantly, and I want to say I had a chance to breathe. We are a choir. We can each take a moment out or a day out or a week out if need be. The fight for Palestine is not going to be quick. It's not going to be short. So if you need to take a break, you have my permission to take a break. I hope to see you tomorrow. We're expecting a big crowd. Come along, tell your friends, drag someone who's never been along. This genocide and what is happening today in Palestine could happen anywhere tomorrow. Be part of the fight for a better tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Share the podcast, tell your friends, and remember there's never been a better time for a free Palestine.
Because the Palestinian fight isn't just the Palestinians' fight, it's all our fight, because it's a fight not just about land, it's about a fight for freedom.
Everybody should be standing here today saying Free Palestine.
Solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters on behalf of the Gumbaynja Nation, my people who've never ceded their sovereignty.
We should be recognising Palestine as a state and recognising the rights of Palestinians.
3CR. Stay tuned, stay radical.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.